This literally just, they don't care how much energy has been put into to look in your business. They're just going to pull the brakes on it.
And what you're talking about too, Alex, in many ways is what I always say is like turning an agency into a real business. Because I've seen a phenomenon that I don't think enough people talk about. I call it the 6-month hero run, where I see agencies get all the way up to like 200,000-300,000 a month, but it's built on unsustainable methodologies or foundations, or like, as you mentioned, it all churns out at the back end. And what happens is, even though it's awesome in internet marketing circles, you get fucking ClickFunnels award and you get to high five people. Investors don't look at that as a real business, because if they see like it's all back to zero 6 months later, then you haven't really built anything foundationally. Whereas if there's a business that's only say doing $30,000 or $40,000 a month, but it has a 7-year history of doing,
it's trending upward,
and it's trending upwards, and it's continuous, and it's growing.
Right.
That's a very different thing from a real business perspective. And so I'd love to hear from you a little bit on, so like, say somebody's thinking about this, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, at some point, whether that's now or in the near future or in the distant future, I would like to sell my agency. Let's talk about some of the things that go wrong, the things that like most people don't even think of, the things you don't know that you kind of see over and over. Like, what are some of the common mistakes and kind of pitfalls people go through in this kind of journey to, cashing out, if you will?
Sure. So the first thing I would encourage is definitely, be part of communities like yours, right? I have a, it's a core philosophy of mine, right? ABL, always be learning. Like, I met unbelievably smart people, right? Like, like super high net worth folks and everything. And the ones I really admire, they're still humble. Like, they're sitting there taking notes, when you're up there, it's like, my God, this person's like, they could buy a small country, right? Or basically have any, do anything they want in life, but yet they're still sitting here. So philosophically, you want to be learning this ahead of the curve. I'm telling you right now, you do not want to be figuring this out in the midst of this. I don't care who you are. This is just way too complicated. It's going to move like a freight train. And like I said, for me, I had all the advisors in the world, and I was trying to figure out on the fly, because it never occurred to me to sell my business, right? I was at, my business was, we had certain numbers, and then we became very attractive. And suddenly all these buyers came out of the woodwork. I'm just trying to figure this stuff out on the fly. So the first thing is give yourself enough time, right? To really like learn this, okay? That's one. Two, again, back to what I mentioned earlier about risk management. Really be obsessed about keeping accurate records. I cannot emphasize that enough. If your records are off, you could do everything right. You could be in the right market. You could be the hottest thing. You could want a gazillion awards, super high profit margin, whatever. But if there's any concern that the numbers are inaccurate, here's what's going to happen. One, worst case, the deal's off. This literally just, they don't care how much energy has been put into to look in your business. They're just going to pull the brakes on it. Because how is going to say, look, the business looks good, but how do we know it's accurate?
Yeah.
Again, too risky, right? So that's the worst case scenario. More likely, what's going to happen is they're going to withhold back a very large amount of that money. So I'll give you a very specific example, so we're not talking abstract here. So my team and I, we typically focus on deals between 2 million and 20 million. We have a handful of deals at 50 million above, but for the most part, most of our deals are between 220 for now. So what's the deal, right? It was asking price was going to be 2 million cash at closing with another $500,000 and an earnout, which I'll talk a little bit later. Just think it's kind of like a bonus, right? We'll call it that, just to make it simple. So $2 million cash at closing, but it was the assumption, not assumption, but the representation by the seller. They said that we have a certain amount of profit, and that's what we're asking for this money, which the buyer was happy to pay. They weren't trying to beat these folks down. They said that's a very reasonable price for what you're asking for, right? But yet when they dug into the accounting, they're like, we can't account for about, roughly 100, I think about 100, let's just call it low mid six figures, okay? Because I'm under NDA, a certain amount of money, right? We can't verify this. It shows up here, but we can't verify it over here. It's all checks and balances, right? And so they said, and they came to me, they said, well, we don't want to feel like the seller that we're kind of shortchanging them. But at the same time, it's too risky for us to release all of this, the entire 2 million. So literally because of a couple of key numbers they couldn't confirm, they held back $350,000 at the closing.
Yeah.
Now, it's not disastrous, but it's also not trivial either, right? I mean, you're sitting here expecting $2 million of cash, and then somebody said, "Look, you're going to get 1.65 million." Again, it's not like the end of the world, mind you. It's not like it's not like the seller's going to be in a poorhouse, but it's real money.
Yeah,
And
and
so
it's your
now it's only
baby.
now. I'm sorry.
And it's for most of us, it's your baby they're talking about.
Right. Right. So now, 4 or 5 months later, I just got news that the fund is going to get released here. And I said there's recording in about a week, but that was almost 4 or 5 months ago. Again, the money is, if the money was never at risk, but psychologically you're walking expecting X. Now you're only getting 65% of X, right? Roughly. And so you're like, well, that's significant. I'm sorry. You're expecting $30,000 or $50,000 more than you're getting this. And everything, I mean, they were growing like crazy. I mean, everything was phenomenal. Their margins were like better than, like probably 95% of the companies out there in their category. Everything was fine, right? They loved everything top to bottom. But yet just because the accounting wasn't, pristine, that's what happened. So that's one thing I would recommend is get as good financial controls as you can. Okay. So the worst thing you can do is mingle, and not illegal, right? It just makes it more difficult. Like right now, we're doing another deal. It's SEO agency. It's taking easily an extra 2 months. I'm not exaggerating, 2 extra months. Okay. Because the seller, they know this, and we keep encouraging them, hey, let's stop doing this. They say, well, it's so easy for me to do. Here's the point. They're running a lot of their accounting. They're commingling the funds, meaning they're using their business for, personal things. We all do that at some level, right? I mean, especially if you're trying to minimize taxes. But I'm talking about like they literally run hundreds of small transactions through their thing. They buy a lot of stuff online, So, well, it's just more convenient. My card's already there. I just buy it. I'm like, it would take you 10 minutes to put this thing on a personal card, but they won't do that. And because of that, we've added 2 months to the process. Because now the accountant's got to figure, okay, well, is this a real business? Or do we back it out and all this other stuff?
Yeah.
You see? So that's one thing. I'm spending a little bit more extra time on this because we all think that's, well, I want to grow. I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. But if the accounting is not pristine, that's what they're basing their decisions on, right?
Yeah. And I can tell you this, by the way, as somebody who's like getting in more into like real estate investing, that like it's ruthlessly about the numbers and 0% about what somebody says about those. And I actually just had a deal we did last week where I can remember we sent them some numbers and the square footage was off by like 50 square feet. And then there was like an adjustment based on those 50 square feet because our numbers weren't right. And that's how investors are looking at your business, by the way. Mm-hmm. They don't care what you say about it and how awesome it is and how big the opportunity is and all the hype things that normally get internet marketers. They're just like, no, you said it was this many square footage and it's not. So we're going to adjust our number based on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some buyers, I mean, they'll be a little bit like, we're doing this deal right now, right? Like, for example, the one I was talking about, this agency, the numbers are a little bit off. And so because of that, that we're adding some time to it. So that's the one thing I would say. The other one is also, this happens a lot too, is I'm still enjoying the business. I'll sell it when I'm tired of it. You just cost yourself several $100,000. I mean, like that. Here's why. By the time you've already burnt out and you acknowledge you're burnt out, you've already been burnt out 6 to 12 months earlier.
Yeah.
And you haven't been growing the business the way you want because you realize, oh, wait a minute, if I grow this thing, it's more work for me. So maybe I'll cut back a little bit. You don't realize you're doing it. And I've had these almost heartbreaking conversations. I used to only say, man, if you just came to me 6 months ago, not even 3 years ago, 6 months, maybe a year back, I could have gotten you extra $1 million easily. But because there's certain things we're missing or they didn't realize there was kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily call sabotaging the business, but they weren't operating at their peak.
Yeah.
Right. And without realizing the business kind of plateauing or, certain things are just, the train was already kind of drifting a little bit.
Yeah. And I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we know when that happens.
Hey guys, if you like this video, you'll also like my book on Amazon called Beyond the Agency Box, which you can also find by my name, Frankie Finn. And it's got a lot of awesome reviews. And it really just goes deeper on a lot of the things we're talking about, everything you need to grow and start a lifestyle agency, from the stages you'll go through to getting clients, to how to create winning offers, to high value deliverables, to wowing clients, to building teams, to building systems, and building a boring factory that's like a 7-figure money machine for you. So if you're interested, I put links for you in the video description, as well as it'll be in the pinned top comment below, and make sure to check those out.